single state in the US has had at least one serial killer, if not multiple. And one of the most highly requested states recently has been Georgia. And so today I'm going to tell you guys about one of the most notorious serial killers from Georgia. Before I actually get into the story, I should say that this is a map of all the states I've covered so far. If you're new here, you can go binge watch all the different episodes I've filmed. And Georgia had a couple options, but I'm going to tell you guys about Gary Hilton. He was known as the National Forest serial killer, and he actually offended in multiple states. I'm going to tell you guys about all the things we know about him, but it's believed, like so many other serial killers, that he killed way more people that were undetected, and so it's likely that he has far more victims than we'll ever really know. So getting right into it, Gary was born on November 2nd of 1946. And I don't really know much about his early life. Like, I couldn't find much background on him, but it wasn't until 2007, when he was literally 60 years old, so older than my parents, that he started to kill. So this all starts on October 21st of 2007. A retired couple was going for a hike in Pisgah National Forest in North Carolina. Their names were John Davis Bryant, who was 80, and his wife Irene Bryant, who was 84. And they loved to hike, they loved the outdoors, like they went hiking a lot. This was a normal thing for them to do. So they arrived at the National Forest and they parked their car at Yellow Gas Road. But they never returned from their hike. Their family was concerned after they didn't hear from them once they were done with their hike. Once they hadn't heard from them and they hadn't returned from their trip for 2 weeks, the family officially reported them as missing. And immediately the Henderson County Sheriff's Department started looking for them. Tons of volunteers, police officers, search dogs, and even a helicopter were all deployed to try to find this missing couple. They weren't sure if they were hurt in the woods somewhere. They weren't sure what happened to them. They did find their car parked and there was no sign of them anywhere. They were able to access their phone records and see that the day that they went on their hike, John did try to call 911, but as he was calling them, the call dropped because they didn't have enough service. So now they're like, okay, something bad happened. November 10th, after a few days of them searching, the search party ended up finding the body of a woman covered in leaves in this park. The remains were sent to the ME's office, and within 3 days, she was ID'd as Irene. It was very clear that she was murdered. She had been bludgeoned to death, and it was undoubtedly a homicide. So this is when the FBI ends up getting involved, and they even offer up a reward for information. And it was also revealed that a bank card that belonged to the Bryants had been used to withdraw $300 from an ATM in Tennessee. And they look at the surveillance cameras at this ATM in Tennessee and they see an older Caucasian man wearing a yellow rain jacket, and unfortunately he wore a hood and it was obscuring his face, but they could see that he was a white older guy. At the time that they saw the surveillance footage, John was still considered a missing person, and they thought maybe he was alive and he was just abducted by whoever killed his wife. However, on February 3rd of 2008, a hunter was in the Nantahala National Forest when he found a human skull. He called the authorities, and when the authorities got there and investigated, they also found a pelvis and a spine. No clothing or anything to like identify the person. So the bones were sent to an ME, and the medical examiner was able to identify him as John. Before John's remains were even discovered, however, on December 3rd of 2007, 46-year-old Cheryl Hodges Dunlap, she all of a sudden did not show up for church on Sunday, where she taught Sunday school. And her family thought this was really weird, so they immediately report her missing the following day. And this is after her car was found abandoned just north of their county line. So they know something is wrong. They know, like, she would not just not show up for Sunday school, and then if her car's abandoned, like, something happened to her. 5 days later, a search party of over 180 people was organized to help locate her. Couldn't find her anywhere. It wasn't until almost 2 weeks later, on December 16th, that a hunter who was in the Apalachicola National Forest, he was with his dogs, they discovered the decapitated, decomposing body of a woman, and they immediately report it to the authorities, and they are able to positively ID her as Cheryl. They also learned that her ATM card had been used 5 times in Tallahassee, and that $700 had been withdrawn from her account. And so it is likely that what happened is Gary killed the couple, then drove down to Florida, killed Cheryl, and then took both of their ATM cards, went to Tallahassee, and withdrew money. But at the time, they didn't connect these cases. They didn't know that they were done by the same guy. They ended up classifying Cheryl's death as a homicide, and authorities announced that they were looking for a suspicious green truck that had been seen in the area around the time that she disappeared. There's some rumors circulating that maybe this was a serial offender who was operating all the way between North Carolina and Georgia and Florida. But at the time, police said this was probably an isolated incident, and they were treating it as such in their investigation. On New Year's Day of 2008, again, at this point, John's body hadn't been found. A 24-year-old sales manager named Meredith Hope Emerson had decided to go for a hike along Freeman Trail on Blood Mountain in Georgia. and she was accompanied by her black Labrador retriever named Ella. While they are going on a hike, several witnesses saw that there was a mysterious older creepy man and his dog following her. So when she never comes back from her hike, authorities end up finding her car abandoned, and inside they find various items such as her water bottle, a dog leash, and a police baton, which is really weird, obviously. So police try to track down who this guy was that witnesses are saying they saw following her, and based on the description, they end up realizing it's a guy named Gary Hilton. And they learn that he's a local drifter, he's kind of odd, and he had a temper, and he kind of creeped people out in the area, and so pretty much everyone that knew of him was pretty wary of him, and they tried to avoid him. And they also know that he always had his golden retriever named Dandy with him, and so again, witnesses said that they saw a guy and his dog following this girl, so they're like, okay, it's definitely Gary. 3 days after she disappeared on January 4th, Meredith's dog Ella was found wandering around a parking lot nearby, and the next day, police found a bunch of her belongings in a dumpster, and this included her bloody clothing, her wallet, her driver's license, her ID card to the University of Georgia, and a blood-stained car seat belt. So obviously, it does not seem like she is alive. It is pretty clear that she was probably killed. So 5 hours after they find these items linked to Meredith, they end up arresting Gary because they are pretty sure he is the guy that was following her, and it seems likely that he killed her as well. And they find him because an anonymous phone call called in and said that he was vacuuming out his van at a local establishment, and he fit the description of what the police were looking for. So when they get him, they arrest him and they start to examine his van. That not only is his car fitting the description of what some people had seen earlier, they're also realizing that it is missing its rear car seat belt that matches exactly the one located in Meredith's personal items. Gary is now arrested and he is being tried for this, and so in exchange for them dropping the death penalty on him and them assuring him that his dog Dandy would have a safe rehoming, she would find a new home and he wouldn't have to worry about her being safe, he agreed to reveal where he had disposed of Meredith's remains. And so he led investigators to Dawson Forest Management Area, and she had been decapitated. It had been done post-mortem in an attempt to prevent anyone from ever IDing her because he thought he was going to get away with this because he's an idiot. Gary said that he had abducted her to steal her bank cards and PIN code, and then he repeatedly hit her with a tire iron, which caused her to die, obviously. And he is just a horrible person. He did all of this just to get their ATM codes. February 22nd of 2011, he was officially sentenced to death. In 2012, he was brought to trial for the 3rd time for the murders of John and Irene Bryant. And during the trials, before he was sentenced, the FBI is involved, and they are still looking into his past and looking into his history and seeing if they can find anything else. And they discover that not only has he killed these 4 people, he has probably killed many other people, and that he's way more dangerous and scary than they even thought originally. We cannot confirm 100% that he killed any of these people. There's just not enough evidence currently. That doesn't mean it might not be confirmed later, but right now we just don't have enough evidence, but it is believed that he killed all of these people that I'm about to tell you about. So on September 7th of 1997, several different bones were found in a national forest, and they were scattered near a campground, and they ended up discovering that it was 51-year-old Judy Smith, who had been missing for 5 months before she was discovered. And it's speculated that she probably was one of his victims because she was found very close where some of his other confirmed victims were found, and in a very similar condition to their